So hello and welcome to today's webinar. So today we're really fortunate to be joined by Jeff Campbell, and Jeff's going to be taking us through MOTRAIN, so an engagement platform. Jeff's going to be sharing his advice on learning engagement and addressing the problems found with most gamification approaches before going on to demonstrate MOTRAIN's modern approach to gamification and highlight how it's being used to great effect by Totoro customers. So before I hand over to Jeff, just a bit of quick housekeeping. So this webinar will last around 30 minutes, but we'll have some questions at the end as well, so it may last a little longer. We're monitoring the chat throughout, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them there. Also, if you want to talk about anything else, just feel free to add them. And if you have any ideas about engagement at all, again, feel free to add them to the chat. Also, a quick reminder, we're going to record this webinar, and we'll share it in the Totoro community afterwards. And we'll give you the link to that at the end of this presentation. So yeah, I think that's the end of housekeeping for now, but I'm going to hand over to you, Jeff, and say thank you for doing the webinar.
Great. Thanks very much, Matt, and thanks so much to everyone for taking the time to come here today. I'm really excited to speak about our MOTRAIN engagement platform and how it integrates with Totoro. And as Matt was saying, today's webinar, I'd like to go through and share some insights on learner engagement and gamification, and then show you how we're using MOTRAIN to improve course completion rates, foster mastery, and strengthen the personal connection between learners and their organization. So I've got my contact info up there, but I'll put that up again just at the end there. So this all started a few years back when I was teaching high school science, and I was using an LMS in a blended environment. And unfortunately, I spent a great deal of my time nagging my students to learn more in the LMS, as this was seriously impacting my face-to-face time. And my nagging really continuously revolved around these four themes here. I was always asking them, why didn't you go in and do this last night? Or how come you're not going in more often? Why don't you go back in and try and improve on your learning? And for crying out loud, how come you're not going in and doing more of the activities that I'm spending all this time creating? And so I was desperately starting to look at learner engagement strategies in the LMS. And in that reading, I was surprised at some of the stats that I was finding. MOOCs had just been released around that time, and as you can see, since that time, they were supposed to be this big game changer for equitable education. And the completion rates on them are now, we're seeing that they're pretty dismal. I also have a number of colleagues that were working in purely distance education settings, and they were also lamenting about how infrequent learning was happening and how poor the completion rates are for their learners. And so this led me to learn a bit more about gamification and its potential use in learning environments. And so for those of you who might be new to gamification, it's where we add game mechanics to game contexts, such as the LMS. It's not playing a real game in that purest sense there. And so ultimately my focus since the education space there, I've really turned into the corporate space with MOTRAIN, as learner engagement is obviously a hot topic there, and many organizations are looking for a solution to this problem. Back to the disengagement issue that I was running into. Earlier this year, I was reading about some frightening polls that were released from Gallup surveys on workplace feelings there, and it was suggesting that 2/3 of all employees are disengaged in the workplace. And a different gamified LMS did some surveys this year as well, and they found that basically the same number of learners that are taking typical workplace training are not engaged. And so the good news is we have a lot of room for improvement, and it seems like if we could add some of these elements of gamification to the workplace training, we can see some improvements on that learner behavior. And so a quote from that study, for that survey from the gamified LMS, was that they said, in a nutshell, when compared to non-gamified training, it seems that gamification boosts the motivation to learn and decreases boredom and unproductiveness. And so these numbers sound really great, and I was really encouraged by them. So of course I went in and installed the most common gamification plugins, and I figured it would make a really big difference. But gamification has been around for a while, and I encountered some of the problems that I think some other people are finding in e-learning. And the biggest one really is reward fatigue and reward indifference, where the learners just simply get tired of earning the same rewards, or they don't care about what those rewards are. There's also relatively very little choice for the learners, and they passively receive these rewards in a systematic manner where it basically becomes very predictable and the novelty wears off there. I know badges have also been touted as this great motivational tool, and the literature doesn't really support that in adult learning. I know, or from my experience using badges, there's of course people out there that describe the merit of earning some credentials and displaying that with a badge, which I think is a bit different than, say, earning a gold star as a motivational tool there. And it just doesn't seem that adult learners are really that intrigued by badges. So we've completely stayed away from that arena. Plus, there's always also some options available to you. So when it comes to leaderboards, this is another common tool that's been used by gamification strategies. And they can be helpful or harmful depending on the users. And many organizations have blindly gone ahead and just put them onto their training programs, and it hasn't always turned out that well. So they must be used with a bit of caution depending on, again, the user personas that you're working with. And the last thing I felt that's missing from the gamification piece is this whole concept of what's in it for me or what's in it for my organization. And there was really nothing that brought the learner beyond just the gamification side of things. Like, what else can we do to enhance that learning even further? And so engagement is this term that's been loosely thrown around. I see it all the time. It's definitely a buzzword. And I didn't really like coming at gamification with just adding that buzzword to the platform. And so in order to address these problems with traditional gamification, I wanted to build a framework for engagement and what that looks like in terms of learning on the LMS, and then apply gamified mechanics to that framework. So again, looking at the literature, if you go in and look at employee engagement, there's many different views on it, but in terms of the context of learning, the definition that seemed to resonate the most with me is an employee's intellectual and emotional connection to their organization. The way MOTRAIN is designed to improve this intellectual and emotional connection is by encouraging the behaviors that lead to learning in Totara. And they include how quickly the users are entering the platform, how often they're learning, and how much they're accomplishing in terms of activity and course completion. We're also looking at when learners go in and meet some minimum levels of achievement, they almost never go back and develop any mastery. So MOTRAIN uses a unique approach to solving this problem, which I'll highlight in one of our case studies coming up here. And lastly, the nature of e-learning can lead to a bit of an emotional disconnect between the learner and the organization. So I wanted to find out a way to enhance and improve this personal relationship. So my amazing star of learner engagement addresses this, where we have this, these top three here: completion, timeliness, and frequency, and mastery, are really that intellectual connection from the learner to the organization. And then again, the emotional connection down here, where we were looking at enhancing that personal connection. Let's have a look at what MOTRAIN looks like in Totara. Once you install the plugin and block and assign the roles, learners earn virtual coins for activity and course completion. They can spend these coins in a store set up by the organization, where any opportunity or item can be offered for purchase, either directly or won through a raffle draw or auction. So you can create a unique store for each audience in Totara and list opportunities and items that are tailored to each particular group of users to maximize that relevance and interest. And so with these ever-changing items and opportunities, it provides learners, first of all, a choice, but it also minimizes that reward fatigue and indifference. We also have leaderboards that we've put in, which can be turned on or off, and they can also be anonymized, so you can just see your relative position on them. So on the left side there, you can see what's called a competitive leaderboard, which is user versus user in an audience. And then on the right side there, you can see we also have a collaborative leaderboard, which is where you have the cumulative coins for each audience squaring off against another audience. So both of these leaderboards can be turned on or off, as I mentioned, and you have to be a bit careful with them in terms of who's your users, and is that something that's going to appeal to them. All of this is run through our web dashboard, which we have single sign-on directly from the block as well. Our flagship is really this store here, and basically when a user comes in a particular audience, they're going to see just those store items that are listed for that particular audience. And so you can put time limits on the item availability, as well as you can limit the number of items that you're offering. That's really to address that timeliness and frequency of learning. We have raffle draws that are set up so that each time a learner purchases an entry, it increases their chance of winning that item. And auctions that are typical in nature, where learners are simply trying to outbid each other for items. But of course, being from Canada, we're really good at adding taxes to things. So we've added a little bid fee onto each bid that is placed. So we're draining some coins from the users in that way. And this store is really where I think the creativity lies. And a lot of people, when I show them this for the first time, they think, oh, well, we can put in some gift cards into here and that'll be great, which of course you can do that. But I'm really trying to encourage clients to think of putting in opportunities that will improve learning further or contribute to the health or emotional well-being of their learners. And I think that's where that emotional connection is really important in terms of showing those learners that your organization understands their interests and are looking out for them, not just for the learning, but outside of that and developing them further. I call this the engagement loop, where the coin gain side is where the learners are going in to Todra to develop that intellectual connection to their organization. And then as the game mechanics work, we want to have them go into the store and we want to drain those coins for them. And that's where we're building that emotional connection to the organizations. So as an instructional designer, it's really this tool that allows you to continually add content and put in items for them to go and work through. And then, of course, continually add items to the store to continue that emotional connection with the learners. If you look at our platform in terms of the structural gamification and the approaches that we've taken for gamified elements, we've used a few strategies specifically to deal with that engagement framework. So the first is the items that are available on a first come, first served basis. We also can limit the number of items that we have available in the store, which means that if you've purchased them all, then there'll be a sold out sign on them. And then, of course, we put in a start and an end date. And so that's nudging, those top three there are really just nudging that timeliness and frequency of learning. And of course, adding in the raffle draws and the auction adds an element of uncertainty. And games with random chance are found to be much more appealing than games that have predictable outcomes. And I mentioned we do have our competitive and our collaborative leaderboards. On our survey done by the Gamified LMS, they had a number of questions about what are the most effective game mechanics according to the participants there. Polls that came back there showed the preferred motivating elements based on the learners there. So the first one being rewards, of course, which MOTRAIN handles quite well. Badges we've stayed away from. The coins that we have there obviously falls into that point category there, and leaderboards we have as well. So those mechanics there are what we are really after, building that the most motivating elements there. And I think it's probably best to show you how some of our clients are using it today. The first case study that I wanted to show you is the one with our awesome partners over at Remote Learner and their client, Purpose Workforce Solutions, whose learners are disconnected 18 to 24-year-olds looking to improve their economic mobility. And so Purpose Workforce works with industries to help train these young people to be confident and ready in the workforce. And they are taking hold of one of probably my favorite part of the platform, which is being able to customize the coin values for each course completion and each activity completion on their Todra site. So we have a global setting that's site-wide, so you can set a default value for each course and each activity, but you can also override those values to whatever you want. So whatever course you want to change the coin value to, as well as the activities, you can do that. And so if you think about this, this can really change your instructional design strategy by leveraging the conditional release feature in Todra to nudge learners through what I call these mastery loops. And so my friends over at Remote Learner shared this image with me, and I think it does a really good job summing up the strategy that you can use as the instructional designer there. So you can offer this learning opportunity that could be a lesson, for example, and then on completion of that lesson, you can show this compliance quiz. And so let's say the completion criteria is set to grade to pass for that. And so if they don't pass that quiz, of course, we would open up a support loop and they could go back and further their learning. But if they do complete that quiz, then we can release the coins as set by the dashboard there and what the coin value is. But we can also then conditionally release what's called, say, the mastery loop, which is then another activity shows up And it could be a quiz that asks more challenging questions. It could be a different activity that connects the learners to that particular topic. But it's that nudge towards doing a bit more than just what's minimally required. And so upon successful completion of that mastery quiz, they have a chance at earning more coins, again, if they meet that criteria for completion. I'm really excited about this mastery loop because I think you can get creative on the instructional design side of things. You could even add tiered levels of mastery. So you could do like a bronze, silver, or gold type of situation. So each threshold of criteria could be getting consecutively more challenging. And so I think this is where you have to think about what activities you're putting in there, but also, for example, if it's quizzes, maybe you need to build some more challenging questions or more questions to put in your test bank. The other really cool thing that they're doing is taking use of our add coin feature. And so you can manually add coins to a learner for any reason that you wish outside of the LMS. And so what this has allowed a Purpose Workforce to do is to assign soft skill assignments there. For example, it could be a learner that goes out and you need to ask a colleague to go out for a coffee. And so upon successful completion of that assignment, you can award coins if they meet it, say that assignment in a certain time frame. And then really important, I think part of this is also the praise that you can offer with that. So through our messaging system in Totara, through notifications as well as email there, the manager or the trainer can send a congratulatory message offering some praise, again reinforcing that emotional connection with the learner and the organization. Lastly, the age group that they're working with are always on their phones, of course, is we have reactivated our mobile app there. And so that's another connection to the Totara platform where it shows the learner what the store items are, and it's a continual reminder of that training that can be done in the background there. Our other case study that I wanted to show was our partners over at Kineo, and we're working with their client, Watts Water, who is a global leader in water technology products based out of the Boston area. And they provide plumbing, heating, and water quality solutions for residential, industrial, municipal, and commercial settings. And I've been working with them for a few months, connecting their MOTRAIN to their Totara site, and we're rolling out in a few phases. And the first is their extended enterprise, where we're working with their customer training side of things. They have an amazing L&D team over there, and they've embraced MOTRAIN wholeheartedly. And their customer training portal is called Learn and Earn. And as you can see, they've taken this block and they've made it look a lot nicer. They've branded it, which, by the way, you can change the name of coins and the image to whatever you want. So they've come up with their own branded token, and basically it's the same mechanics. Of course, the customers go in to learn about the products and services that Watts has, and then what they do is just go in and purchase the items that are in the store. They're targeting their contractors, engineers, and wholesalers, and then the Watts marketing team has joined in on the fun, and that's where they've put in their branded merchandise into the store. And so you might be thinking, well, these are customers, how on earth do you get those items out to them? And so over the summer, we've built in an integrated shipping mechanism directly into MOTRAIN. And we've connected Watts' platform with their preferred third-party fulfillment and shipping provider. So each night, our server collects the shipping info provided by the customers and their redeeming items. And we send that directly to Watts, as well as we send it to their third-party fulfillment provider. And that's where the packaging and the shipping of those items are being sent. So at this time, they're only shipping items directly to North America, but the plan is to roll this out globally over the next short while to the other learning centers, as well as our other customers throughout the world. So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, well, those are different use cases than ours, but we do have clients that work in a variety of different ways with Totara, and I'm continually being surprised at how organizations are using our platform. So if you are outside of those two that I showed you, just to give you an idea of some other places that we're seeing the use case for MOTRAIN, here they are. But if you do see a use for this outside of these areas, I'd definitely love to hear from you as well. Due to the work that we had to do with that shipping integration, we did have to open up our API. So if you do have other business platforms that you're working with that you can see a use case for MOTRAIN, we definitely can work on that as well. To leave us off here, a couple weeks ago, I took my kids to my gym, and those are my kids riding exercise bikes that have been fitted with a screen that have all sorts of engagement tools built into them. And they work by only when you pedal on the bike there. So you can drive a car, or you can race avatars, or you can actually even race the person on the bike next to you and their avatar. And I was thinking that this exercise bike is kind of like the LMS, and that people should be using it more often. And we often find excuses not to ride it, or when we do ride it, we don't ride it as hard as we should. And so these attached engagement tools on top of the bike, I thought were a really good analogy for what MOTRAIN is attached to the top of the LMS in order to maximize engagement and nudge people's behaviors in ways that you want them to use it a bit more. If you're interested in connecting with MOTRAIN, we have some fantastic partners. Remote Learner, Munami, and Kineo, based out of the United States, they all have access to our platform. eLearning Touch over in France and Mexico, they also can help connect clients. The last bit is I would love to hear from people who have either come to the webinar or are going to watch it later there. Please feel free to reach out to me to schedule either a demo, and I'd be happy to connect you to a free trial as well. My contact info is there. And lastly, I will be in a couple weeks time here, I'll be over at DevLearn in the Totara booth. We have a small MOTRAIN section there. And so I would love for people to come by, speak about engagement, and eat some chocolate coins that we'll be having at our table there. But Matt, I think that's about it for me. And I'd love to hear from some people if there are any questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeff. That's really, really interesting. It's really interesting to see the way you can customize the coins as well and to make it really fit in for an organization's needs. That was quite, yeah, I didn't know that you could do that in such detail. That's very good.
Awesome.
I've got a couple of questions just from myself really as well, just to see, can you explain how TotaSite connects with MOTRAIN?
Right, we have a plugin and a block that needs to get installed onto the Totara site. And then to really get that full functionality to customize coin values, set up single sign-on to control the leaderboards there, we have to link the sites to our server with a site token. So we get a URL and a site token that makes that full connection there. So you basically combine the two tools together.
Okay, so it's very easy really.
Yeah.
Okay, and which activity types can be assigned custom coin values?
Yeah, any of the activities and courses that are on the site will populate on the custom coin side of things. So we have obviously there's the regular activities that come with an install, but if you add in anything else like H5P or something that's not standard, it will pick those up on the activity types list as well.
So could you use a SCORM piece, for example, as well?
Yeah, exactly. So, and it comes with a default coin value, but you can customize those values on the dashboard.
Okay, so for example, can you set it up so if you attain a certain score in a SCORM quiz, for example, you could then have different levels of coins?
Not directly. You can kind of work around that. Our platform is listening for completion events, and so when you complete an activity as set by the criteria on that particular activity, if those have been reached or fulfilled, then coins are awarded. So you would have to then add a different level, a different activity if you wanted to change the parameters on what the completion criteria are.
Okay, great, but there's still quite a lot of flexibility there.
Exactly. It allows you some flexibility and some creativity on the instructional design side.
Okay, that's interesting. Does anyone have any other questions for Jeff? Okay, is there anything else you really wanted to highlight, Jeff, about MOTRAIN or about engagement in general?
I think if you're interested in seeing this a bit more, is connect with me and I'll help set up a trial account. I think you got to see it on your own site. So again, I'd be more than happy to meet with people directly, have a quick chat, and then show them kind of how it works, and then get them connected through the plugin and block. And that's where the real kind of success that you can see with it starts happening, when you see it with your own tools. Because if it's on somebody else's site, it's not quite the same. So yeah, I'd be happy to connect people with it.
Okay, Laurie's asking a question as well. You can provide the activity again with an increased value as the minimum for more coins if the user wishes to earn more while learning more. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So Laurie's been diving into it quite a bit over at Remote Learners. So she's got some great insights into how they're using it.
Okay, thanks, Laurie. Yeah, and also I noticed, yeah, like you say, you'll be at Devlin this year, so people can come and talk to you there as well.
Right. Yeah, we'll be in Totara Village. Yeah, for those 2 days.
And also, that's the sort of thing where you see people being so engaged by obtaining like swag, really, isn't it? People at Devlin last year, I know people were going and getting lots and lots of points just by visiting different stalls. So taking that sort of approach and applying it to an LMS must be really interesting for a lot of people.
Yeah, like the exercise bikes that have that engagement platform connected to it. I think if you look around, you'll see multiple different use cases of where there's an existing structure or mechanism, and then there's other ways people are now starting to look at increasing engagement. I mean, you can see it in a lot of places, like a Fitbit is an example of it as well.
Yeah, I do think that people are really quite responsive to just more rewards like that. Just really want to get on with doing more learning and more training. So I think MOTRAIN is a really excellent example of how to just get people engaged and back onto the LMS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of interest on the extended enterprise side now with, again, how do you get customers to come back and learn about your products and services? That's a real challenge, I think, in terms because they're not required to do that. So having the marketing teams from those organizations come and get involved as well seems to be a really powerful connection there. We're connecting marketing and the L&D side, and that seems to be a really good mix.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Is there anything else you'd like to add for today's webinar?
So that's it. You can learn more about MOTRAIN on there's the Totara extension page that we're listed in, as well as our website there, motrain.com. So yeah, please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. And thanks again, everyone, for coming to learn a bit more.
Like I say, if you're not already a member of the Totara community, feel free to join the community for free, and you'll be able to access this recording online there as well. So thanks again, Jeff. Thanks for taking part in this webinar today. And I'm sure many people look forward to seeing you at Devlin. As Laurie says as well, the chocolate coins there are the best. So
thanks, Laurie.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks again, Matt.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, bye-bye.